and welcome to Jim and Jay's final save for the post-West Ham game. I'm Jim Daly, and these are my thoughts on Palace's 3-1 defeat at home to West Ham. Same scoreline they beat us at SOS last season. In fact, the same scoreline we beat them at Upton Park last season. So I'm definitely banking on a 3-1 win for Palace at Upton Park second half of this season to make up for it. But it was a frustrating game for Palace. They probably didn't deserve to get anything from the game, if we're being brutally honest. West Ham were probably the better team. They did play some nice stuff, the West Ham way, as we've been told, and they used the ball very well and they put Palace under pressure. But as with previous games, Palace were never really out of it and got back into it with a penalty from Cabaye. But even in the second half, when Palace were down to 10 men, they dug in, they went sort of back to Pulis ball a little bit, but we know this team can do that. And they really actually limited West Ham to shots from outside the area. And it was actually really only when West Ham went a bit more direct. And I know that West Ham fans won't like to hear that because they were singing anti-Allardyce chants all game. When they brought on Carroll, went a bit more direct, that's actually when they got their second goal, which really killed the game off. And actually that was when they really started to pose Palace more threats. Biggest talking point of the game was, of course, Dwight Gale's red card at the end of the first half. At the time, I was really frustrated with Gale because they looked like two very silly lunges, and I actually thought that Clattenburg had no choice but to send him off. Watching it back on replays, you could argue that Gale was a little bit unlucky with the first one. He loses the ball and chases it back and does a sort of striker's tackle on Payet. But if you look at slow motion, he actually gets his foot on the ball, and quite unfortunately, it rolls off the ball into Payet's ankle. Now, I guess it depends on your interpretation of the rules of the game as to whether that is a foul. It probably still is, and it probably still is deemed a dangerous tackle, which is a foul and can be booked for. So you could argue that is still a yellow card, and I still think it was probably a bit of a dangerous challenge to make. But he is very unlucky that his foot has hit the ball, he's got contact with the ball, and it's rolled over. Where he's silly, in my opinion, is that a few minutes later, he goes in for a challenge on Kouyaté. Now, it's nowhere near as much contact as the one on Payet, but again, it's a silly challenge. Didn't need to make it. It's in the centre circle. There's no threat. Kouyaté, big lad, goes down very easily. But having said that, all players do these days. And if it was the other way around, if that was a West Ham player making two rash challenges on a Palace player in quick succession, we would probably expect a red card. Well, having said that, Coquelin for Arsenal did that and more earlier on in the season, but Lee Mason decided not to send him off. So again, you're asking questions of consistency with referees. But if I'm being brutally honest, I can see why Clattenburg has sent Gale off, and he's unlucky with the first yellow, but he put himself in a situation where the ref could send him off. But to be honest, Gale was having one of those halves where his head didn't seem in the game at all. He didn't look like he, knew what he was doing. He's obviously a very talented player, Dwight Gale. We know that. In the 6-yard box, he's very sharp, but he's struggling, I think, in that lone roll up top, and at times it almost looked like he didn't quite believe in himself. He wasn't really making the darting runs into the box when we were getting down the wings. There was one where Wilf squared it and it sort of bounced around and Gale sort of spun and then didn't shoot, could have had a shot, didn't, went to punch did the same thing. It was a bit like Gale just his head wasn't really in the game. There was one bit in the first half, he passed the ball to Balassi and it was an overhit pass, went out for throwing. And Gale stood there for about 30 seconds, hands on hips, sort of shaking his head, as if to say like, oh, I can't believe I've done that. But any other Premier League player would just get it out of their mind and get on with it. We all hear about how focused they are on the game. And that, to me, reeked of a player that just is low on confidence, doesn't believe in himself. And I worry if there's a deeper issue with Gale, which is frustrating because we need a striker right now. We've got no strikers. For the next game, we've now got no first-choice strikers. Fraser Campbell and Patrick Bamford are the only players I can think of we can play. Shamak's injured, Wickham's injured, Murray's gone, obviously, Gale's suspended, and then it'll probably be someone like Balassi or Sacco. Balassi went up front again, second half, didn't work, we know he can't play there, but we are running out of options, so it'll be interesting to see what Pardew does there. So it was weird. The whole Gale thing was weird, and I don't know what's going to happen, because in an ideal world, all Palace fans want Gale to succeed here. We all like him, he's good in front of goal, in the 6-yard box, but he needs his head screwed on, and right now it's not. But I'm not a psychology expert, so who knows what's going on there. Second half, one-way traffic as you'd expect, but Palace played quite deep, quite compact, Jedi came on, Ledley came on. Good to see them involved. We've said before they can play a role, and that role was perfect for them. But West Ham got the breakthrough. And I think when it came, no Palace fans were really complaining. It was probably deserved. One of those games where you'd hope you can hang out for a draw. And had we done that, I think we'd all be thinking, all right, we scraped that, but fair enough, because the performance levels probably warranted a point, but balance of play, West Ham probably a better team, and probably the best team we've seen down at Selhurst. We've had Arsenal and Man City down, but really West Ham played some very good stuff, so fair play to them. But it leaves us in 6th. We're still doing fine, thanks to our good start to the season, and it's certainly not crisis mode at Palace, but frustrating day overall, but these are the things that we even out over the season, hopefully. And it's Palace. We're used to it. There's a little bit during the second half where it felt a little bit like we'd gone back to a few years ago, where Palace were the underdogs again. But do you know what? We're going to be fine. We'll recover from this, because this Palace team is one that seems to bounce back. And away at Leicester next week, perfect opportunity to do that. Although who's going to play up front, I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Here's Jay from the Eagles Beak with his thoughts on the game. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet to Palace Fan TV for our regular videos, reviews and previews and all sorts of other things. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And comment below with your thoughts on the game. Did Palace deserve anything from it, or were West Ham the better team? Anyway, here's Jay from the Eagles Beak, and see you again soon. Cheers.
Hi guys, welcome back to Palace Fan TV. This is the latest Jim and Jay's final say, and you've already heard from Jim. Now it's me, Jay, from the Eagles Beak, with my say on the game against West Ham yesterday. Disappointing game. Obviously, the sending off of Dwight Gale was the turning point, particularly for West Ham, and changed the game, because it was a great first half. Two attacking sides, and in the build-up to the game, I was looking forward to seeing two sides. And it's a team, we're playing a team that I wasn't sure how we would get on against. Very similar to us in the way that they attack. They've let in goals, and they're not so great at home, but they've been great away from home, beating the likes of Liverpool, Man City and Arsenal already. And it turned out they beat us, but it was an odd game because the first half was really good. What I expected from two attacking sides, both having a go at each other. Gale got his first yellow card. It was quite lively yesterday, I have to say. Very similar to how we've played in the recent games, that we were putting the ball up to him in the air, and he was challenging for it, but he wasn't really winning much, and it's not his strength to, in the air. It's particularly against James Collins, who had an excellent game for West Ham. His second yellow card was it was silly. I mean, he shouldn't have gone in for the challenge in that position of the field. Kouyaté went down, made the most of it, but Gale gave Clattenburg a decision to make, and in that position, he didn't really think about it too much. He brought the second yellow card out, but I think it was about the 44th minute, right before half time. Really silly of Dwight Gale, and he's since apologised on Twitter to both the fans and the club, and that should be the end of it. The downside is that it changed the game. The second half was a completely different game of football. It was all about Palace defending, and 88th minute, I mean, we were so close to actually getting the point, which arguably we deserve, but against an attacking side like West Ham, they have quite a lot of talent. It just happened. They got the second goal, and they went on to get a third, because it's just playing with 10 men against a team that knocked the ball around like West Ham did, and we didn't really have a chance in that second half again. I can't really remember us having an effort on goal. Balassi played up front, and we had four across the middle, very rigid. We took off Kabay, we brought on Jedinak and Ledley, whose game is exactly that. Battle in midfield and try and retain the ball and try and win the ball back, be stubborn. It did take West Ham a while to break us down, to be fair, but it was coming, wasn't it? And it was disappointing to lose, but it all hinged on the red card in the first half. And I think all the way up to the red card, we played well. Didn't particularly get Balassi and Zaha into the game quite so much as we have done in recent weeks, and obviously West Ham have done their homework on that front. But Kabay was immense again. I think for me, he was our man of the match. Great temperament to have to take a second penalty after scoring the first penalty, because I think it was Gale that encroached into the area. But he took it well, lived up to the expectations, particularly as I've said to West Ham fans how good Kabay is. I just think he ran out of steam in the second half, and there was a need to bring somebody on that could just sit in midfield and help defend a bit more. And Kabay was everywhere in that game. So for me, it's a game where we've lost to an excellent side. For me, it's a disappointing loss, but I think it hinged on that decision to send Gale off, and it was probably a deserved red card in the end. 2 yellow cards in a short space of time. Silly really, but Gale's apologised. And we move on. It's a loss against a team who it's no bad thing losing to a team like that, because they came with an attacking lineup. And for me, it's disappointing more because we couldn't see how we would get on in the second half. I think we were more than a match for them in the first half. I think it's more disappointing from that respect rather than a loss. But we move on to Leicester away next week, and that'll be a equally tough game. But it's away from home, and we've been playing well away from home as well. I just think it'd be interesting to see what Pardew does up front for us. Particularly now Gal's banned. Bamford doesn't seem to be in the picture, although he's making the bench. Hopefully for me, Connor Wickham will be fit to play that one because I think he fits the formation brilliantly. He's played well for us when he has played. It's just a shame that he's been injured, and we've really missed him, I think, in that role. But this is a loss. We can't win them all. We're sitting sixth on the table. Great start for us so far. We're not used to starts in the top division such as this, so I'm relatively happy. It's just a shame we lost yesterday, but these things happen. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to the videos. Leave your comments below. Any questions you've got for us or any improvements you'd like to see us make on these videos going forward, then that'd be great. But you can catch us on Twitter as well, and I'm at the Eagles Beak. Usually available on Twitter. I'm around. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week.